Fire discipline needed to take the hit.
Like the relic is what's the problem.
Yeah, because that's the thing that actually gives these the punch that they have, right? Like, and this right here is part of the detachment problem. Is some units are great in one detachment, horrible in others.
Hey everybody, today we're going to take a brief look at some of the Space Marine points changes, how we feel about them, if they were justified in our eyes, as we are both Space Marine fanboys, and try to see if we can find a way to maybe mitigate some of the damages that we took. And overall, essentially, how do we feel about it? How do you feel about it after looking at them just quickly?
Well, I think that there's two things at play here. The first thing is, how do I feel after the first time I read the changes? Because it's been a little while now.
Yes, it has, yeah.
And really why we're doing this video and not doing a video when, our first reactions is now we actually have had time to play.
Yeah, I've played you a couple times now, and you've gotten even into a tournament. So
yeah, 2 tournaments actually since the drop of this.
Yeah.
And when I first read it, and when I played it, were 2 separate feelings. Neither of them were great.
Oh, okay. That's not what you want to hear.
That's not what you want to hear, no. But neither of them were great.
I assume you were using a bunch of the units that went up.
I was almost exclusively using the units that were going up.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of the problem. So one of the first units that went up, which I know you play a lot of, is Aggressors. They went up, I think, just 10 points for a squad of 3, and then another 10 points if you want to add another 6 to the squad. I feel like that's okay. They can do everything, and I hope that they're not being punished for the sins of bolter discipline.
They absolutely are.
Yeah, I know, and
that's the problem. So here's my first grievance, Ian.
Yeah.
Right, the airing of grievances is now. Mm-hmm. Games Workshop has done this, in my opinion, incorrectly.
Right.
Because the real problem is a full pack of 6 of these plus the Gravis apothecary guy that gives them all lethal hits, and then you give that guy the fire discipline from the Gladius, and suddenly they all get like lethal hits and sustained hits on like 5-ups when you go into the Dev Doctrine, and this unit, you've played against this unit, it kills whatever it shoots at.
Yeah, essentially puts on like 30, it can put on anywhere 30 wounds onto something.
Yeah.
If you're rolling hot.
If you're rolling hot, you can get between 30 and 40 wounds on something, no problems.
Yeah, on anything. It's
on
like
anything. On anything. Like,
so you're saying that Aggressors didn't need to take the hit.
Fire discipline needed to take the hit.
Like the relic is what's the problem.
Yeah, because that's the thing that actually gives these the punch that they have, right? Mm-hmm. Like without the relic and the apothecary, it doesn't have the same.
Yeah, then they're fair for their points cost. From before.
Exactly.
So they're paying for the sins of that, which I think is a bit rough. But we got a lot of units to look at, so
we do. But that's what I think is going on here. Are they fair at 120 points? I mean, yeah.
I'd say yeah.
But they didn't need to have it. They don't have an invol. They're squishy still.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you that fire discipline should have been...
That's the real problem.
We should have just made fire discipline go up like 25, 30 points.
Yeah, 100%.
And then that would have mitigated that. Okay, the Assault Intercessors went down. They are now 75 points for a squad of 5, which I think is great. They weren't getting a lot of play. It's not like they do a lot of damage. The Strength 4 you can hit some pretty hard walls there with the Strength 4.
You know what? It's a great play. I think that the Assault Intercessors, like for 75 points, what a great unit. My issue here is for 10 points less, just take Scouts.
Exactly, and Scouts are one of the units that went up.
And they're one of the units that went up.
And they went to 65, but it's still absolutely justifiable, and you probably should be playing at least one squad of Scouts.
We'll get to those there.
That, yeah.
But so
free
all
and
in all,
clear, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Free and clear all the way to the Centurion Devastator squads, which went up. Now, I don't recall what they were before. I don't really play these guys. I do have them. But 6 models for 370. I know that you can do some pretty janky stuff with the Raven Guard and essentially have Uriel Ventress, give the unit teleport. That stays on the unit. It's a new keyword for them, essentially, is Deep Strike. And then every turn you can remove a unit, an infantry unit, which they are, and then put them back onto the table. So they always have lines of fire with that Centurion Devastator squad, which is brutally strong. Brutally strong.
They were like 10 or 15 points less before.
Yeah, okay. So for a full 6-man squad, it's up like 30 maybe?
Yeah, 20 or 30.
Yeah. Okay. Heavy intercessors went down. They're now 100 points. I mean, they read really well, you know? Yeah. They read really well, but then every time I've played them, I've thought, I'm going to put them on the shelf for a little bit because I need some other stuff. So them going down is good. Inceptors going up, I think this was a must. They were just a little too strong. Squad of 6 for 260. Yeah. I mean, if you want to play them plasma, they're really effective. If you want to play them with assault bolters, they're really effective. They both just do different things, and they're just both as awesome.
Asterisk next to it. They're both equally as awesome, but the plasma ones are significantly better. Sure, yeah.
Whenever I've played the assault bolters, and I have thought ahead what my Oath of Moment target should be, I make sure that the assault bolt gun guys can land, shoot at it. They get 1 billion shots because it's huge on sustained hits, and then you're doing your rerolls because they're twin linked as well. The best part about that is if your opponent then moves that squad that you were shooting at, or any other squad within 24 inches that you've oathed, you now get to re-roll for oaths. If you have 6 models in the unit, they're all shooting 3 times. That's 18 dice. If you're re-rolling 18 dice and searching for 6s, you're going to get about 5 6s, but they're sustained hits 2, so that translates to roughly 15 hits on your opponent's turn when they do a move.
Yeah, it's good.
So you could land, obliterate something, and then pretty consistently obliterate something else if you've chosen a really, really slick Oath of Moment target. So I got to say that there's huge play for both of them. Though the plasma ones are better at just landing and deleting something.
Yeah.
Especially if it's armor. So if it's 3 wounds, it's very good. But that alone can put those assault bolt guns into superstardom in my opinion.
Totally can. I think that the AP hamstrings them a little bit. I think that the reason they went up, not only is the ability very good, it is, but I think the reason that they went up is just how the plasmas come down and delete.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if 130 is actually fair for the bolter ones. I think they could have stayed at 120 and they still would have been fair for the bolters. Right? Like I think this is one of the instances where GW's new philosophy on how to point units bites them in the butt.
Right. Or they could have just renamed them like Exterminator, Intercessors, and like bolter or
Inceptors and whatever it is, right? And so they could have split it up into 2 data sheets.
Yes, yeah,
right.
Which would be the way
that would have been the way to do that.
And then you could they could have separate rules that might benefit them. Whatever. I think that's actually a really good call, and probably what they should do because those guns are so vastly different.
Yeah.
And it's weird to see them on the same model. All right.
For the same price.
For the same price,
right?
Infernus Squad.
Love it.
They're now 80 points for 5, which is great. Like just having a 5-man squad come in and threaten Overwatch on stuff is super duper strong.
It's a huge deal.
10-man, something I haven't done, but something I've thought of is taking a 10-man squad, throwing one of them away, putting a captain in that unit, so it's a 9-man squad with 1 captain, and then putting them in a drop pod, deep striking them, and then essentially avoiding paying 2 command points to do your Salamander's torrent of fire thing. So yes, you have to toss one, but it's a drop pod that's going to hit and do like 11 mortal wounds or devastating wounds to pretty much anything. Yeah. It's something I thought of. It sucks to throw a model in the garbage. It's a 16-point model, but I think the payoff for like instant delivery of pain to your opponent can be really
so
strong.
Good.
Intercessors went down as well.
Cool.
Okay. Not a lot to talk about there. Outriders went down, which is great. They're still in a weird spot, I find. Maybe we'll see a lot more of them being played. I mean, 3 models for 80 points actually is fairly decent, I think.
The only upside of this now is that because they're 80 points and they're reasonably priced, maybe you play like the Storm, whatever the Storm Force is, and you can play 6 squads of them.
No, you screw
it.
I still think you don't.
No, do it. I dare you.
I think they'd be good to like. They can hold back
6
objectives
squads,
and kind of move
play
around.
6.
You could blitz them into the corners to cover some of the secondaries.
There could be 36 Outriders on the table.
Yeah, that could be huge. Put an ATV in each one.
Yeah, and you're just like, they're all 4 wounds.
Yeah.
But it would be bad. It would be bad. Don't do it.
Don't do that. The big boy, Redemptor Dreadnought, went up 10.
Unnecessary.
I think that's unnecessary. Yeah. I think for 200 points, he sat pretty decently. I know the Redemptor can make for a lot of bad feels for your opponent, which is a problem, which I don't really want to do. I don't like that if it's trouble for a lot of people. But sometimes I play it and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's so awesome. And then you get capped by a couple Bright Lances and he's dead.
Yeah. The thing about this is like every time they do one of these, he just goes up 10 points. When the edition first like dropped, he was like 180 or 185.
Which was way too cheap.
Which was too cheap. Yeah. Which was too cheap. And then like in the Codex, the original one, he's like 195 or something, and then suddenly he's up at 200. And 200 is the price tag where you look at it and go, well, I mean, okay. Yeah. I'll take it. But now 210, at 210, you're like, oh man, like, do I really want to? And you like really have to want to. Because there's just better choices now. For 210, now it's not just a choice where at 200, you were like, that's pricey, it's steep, but okay. Yeah. This is like, you're like, come on. This was an unnecessary drive-by, and I don't know why they did it, but they did it.
And a lot of the lists that I'm seeing, Space Marines that are performing really well are not using Redemptors.
Not even
so
close.
They got punished there. Yeah. But okay.
Yeah, and that happened when he went to the 200 range.
That too.
That shift happened when he was 10 points cheaper. Now, for sure, never.
Yeah. Guilliman 350 went down 350.
I mean, okay, so you still don't.
Yeah, he's kind of a weird one. I don't know what points he would need to be for me to actually double take him and consider it.
And this is the plague of being a Space Marine. This right here is the perfect plague of being a Space Marine, because you are either not good enough or way too good. Space Marines almost never live in the sweet spot. Yeah. So the minute he becomes cheap enough that you want to take him, suddenly he's too cheap. Yeah. Because like, let's say he's sub 300, 290, which 290 might actually be somewhere near the fair cost, maybe like 300. But at 300, you always take him.
Right, yeah.
Right? And there's the problem, right? It's so hard to actually dial in what that is.
Well, especially a model like this that is just such an individually unique model that it does stuff that nothing else does. Yeah. As soon as it starts to become like, it's already at a point where you kind of want to look at it and you're interested in it. As soon as it becomes cheap enough, you kind of feel obligated to, in a way, because it doesn't function like the rest of the army. It's a standalone kind of very unique thing.
He's unique.
Guilliman going down, love to see it. I hope I see him on the tabletop more, but it's still 350 is a hard pill to swallow.
It's a hard pill.
Scout squad's going up. I mean,
totally necessary. 55 was way too cheap.
Yeah, way too cheap. They might even go up 10 points more. I'd still wouldn't care.
See now
75 points? No way. You're still playing two of them.
I think this is actually one of those rare moments. In contrast to Guilliman, I think 65 points is perfect. Because at 65 points, you don't auto take 3. At 55 points, you did. At 55 points, you're like 3 units of scouts. Click, click, click. Yeah. But at 65, now you actually have to really think about it. And usually the answer is 1 or 2. And I think that's fair.
I mean, what they do for 65 points,
it's great.
Like if you just look out, you don't look at their ability, which is absolutely incredible, and you just look at their stat line and their weaponry.
Solid.
For 65 points is really good. Yep. And then you throw in the ability that they have, which is leaving the table at your opponent's end of your opponent's turn and essentially outflanking.
Plus the built-in abilities of infiltrate and scout.
Yeah.
Right? But
they got a lot going on. I think 65, it's fair. I wouldn't be surprised if they went up to 75, and I would still be playing them at 75.
I don't know if I'd play them as voraciously, though. We're here, in all my Space Marine lists, I have at least one squad. Because you kind of need the bounce, right, to help you play the missions. Yeah. But this, though, if it goes to 75, I would start then looking at like assault intercessors for the exact same price. And start using them as action monkeys. Right? Because then they don't die automatically to volume, right?
Well, it's hard to say.
The game plan changes, is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Stern Guard veterans go down. I mean, they were stupidly hot at the beginning of this edition because of their rule, which was like once they're done shooting, if they've killed a unit, they get to shoot again.
Oh, yeah.
That brought in huge problems with adding Tigerius to the unit.
It was
and then
sick.
technically Tigerius gets to shoot twice, and if he's shooting twice, you're owning any shooting phase.
Yeah, it was
super
rad.
broken.
I remember doing that. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I did that to you once. It was rad.
Yep, 5 points for 90 models. It seems okay to me.
Not good enough, though.
They're still kind of riding a weird line.
Yeah, it's because you don't get the reroll wounds anymore from Oath. So their rule now is I get to reroll ones against the Oath target to wound, but that is still not really good enough because with combi weapons, okay, they wound on 4s, anti-infantry, it's okay. Devastating wounds, it's okay. But
yeah, nope, I'm 100% with you there.
Yeah.
The Whirlwind, one of your favorites in the early parts of 10th, went up to 180 points. Is that
Why?
Is that a 40-point increase? Or
35.
35.
Like, why? It was all at 145. So it used to be like 125. That was like when it came out. That was way too cheap. Like, that was criminally cheap, and you'd be stupid to not take one. At 145, now you're like, okay, I have to think now, right? Yeah. Because now it's effectively the same cost at 145. It's in the same ballpark as like 10 Infernus Marines or a squad of 10 troops.
And the damage matches.
And the damage, right? So
they do love punishing units that can shoot out a line of sight, though.
They love it.
They like those units being kind of not as active in the game. And I understand that. It can be crappy for your opponent just to be getting constantly hammered by something you can't deal with. Yeah. But I think 180 is really steep.
180 is them telling us to stop playing them.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's like, oh, don't play this old model anymore.
For 10 points more, you get a Vindicator.
Yeah, it was ludicrous, the difference.
For 10 points more, you get, what, a Repulsor?
Yes, for 10 points more, you get a Repulsor.
Yeah. So essentially, Whirlwinds are effectively points dead now.
Yeah, you'd be silly to take one now. Like, it doesn't do enough in the game for that. Yeah. It's not worth it.
Well, that was essentially our rundown of what we've seen, what we've experienced with the new points changes on Space Marines. I think that some of the points changes were fair. Some of them are a little bit of a low blow, for sure. The Whirlwind, a little bit on the Redemptor.
Unnecessary,
yeah. And the Aggressors, I don't think needed that. What really needed the hit was the thing that made Aggressors easily abusable.
And look, they didn't even change it.
Fire Discipline, 30 points.
It's still
just make it 55 points or something.
Yeah, bring Aggressors back down.
Yeah,
and this right here is part of the detachment problem. Is some units are great in one detachment, horrible in others, right? And it makes their points fluctuate, right? For example, Thunderwolf Cavalry in the Firestorm Assault Force, bad.
Yeah.
Right? Thunderwolf Cavalry in the Stormlands Task Force,
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because they okay. And so the external balance and even the internal balance is all totally out of whack.
Right.
And this is the problem with the detachment thing that they've gone with. And the problem is like they go and attack the unit when really the problem is the detachment that makes the unit that much better, right?
But how would you do that? Would you do if you're playing a Stormlands Task Force and you're playing Thunderwolves, each pack of Thunderwolves costs more? Because then it's just too much crap to deal with. I understand that certain models are paying for the sins of one particular effect. I know the Necron are going to get hit. I assume that the Monolith is going to get clipped, but the Monolith and other detachments besides Hypercrypt, not that crazy.
Yeah.
It's still really good, without a doubt. And it's fun. It adds dynamic movement to the Necron game, but I think the Hypercrypt is going to go up because of Hypercrypt.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what the answer to that is, but I do know that is the problem. So something for us to all think about, I guess.
Yeah, if you guys have any ideas on how they could possibly fix some stuff like this and not make the unit be punished just because it can be played in a bit of a broken detachment or with broken enhancements, please post up in the comments. We'd love to get your feedback in here. You probably have different ideas and views on the game that we have.
Yeah, totally.
And please like and subscribe, guys. Thanks a lot for watching.
Have a good night.